Hello, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Andrew Tallents. I'm the founder and managing partner of the Talents Partnership. I'm sporting my new lockdown haircut today. My 11-year-old daughter took great pleasure in taking the hair clippers to my hair. You can see the before and after from the photo on your screens and now in front of you. I think I'm just about getting used to it. We're proud again to be partnering with Dan Wells, the founder of Grow CEO and Grow CFO, in the presentation of these 14 webinars about self-coaching. The webinars will be taking place on a fortnightly basis, and I'll let you know about the next webinar at the end of today's session. This is a third in our webinar series, and today's topic is, why am I here? In my experience, when we're learning, it is important to be aware of what is going on around us, so we can focus on what is important to us during the time we have together today. So let's just take a few moments to settle into our own space wherever we are and open our minds to learning something new about ourselves today. As usual, we have an hour together today. We're going to try something a little bit different later on. I'm going to share some content with you, but more importantly, get you to do some thinking about why you are here. I don't mean in the seminar, but why you're here. That'll take about 30 minutes, and then we'll have about half an hour for Q&A. You don't actually need to write down what's on the slides today, because these will be posted online, both on the CFO, Grow CEO portals and on LinkedIn. But it would be good if you had a pen and paper to hand, as I am going to ask you some thought-provoking questions during the presentation. An A4 piece of paper or something like that would be useful. Also, we won't be using the Q&A box today. I've decided to restrict that, so we'll purely use the chat box. So as we go through the webinar, if any questions come up for you, then please write them in the moment so we don't forget them in the chat box, and I will answer them after the presentation. We'll have plenty of time to come to those. So we're going to practice this now. So if you could just place into the chat box your first name and where you're calling in from today, and we can see who is on the call. So we have Shanghai, Northern Ireland, Northamptonshire. I know we've got some people from London today as well. And Cheshire, Lancashire. Great, that's working. So if you do want to write any questions in this chat box while they're forefront of memory, and then we'll just go through them all once we finish the presentation. Thank you. So some of you may have some technical problems during the webinar today. If this happens to you, then the best thing to do is just exit the webinar and rejoin. I also know that Wi-Fi has been very slow in recent days, so please bear with me. We might get some lag, but don't worry. We're also recording today's session and posting it onto the Grow portals, on LinkedIn, and on my new YouTube channel. So you can also review the webinar at your convenience. Over the next few months, we'll be exploring some different aspects of self-coaching. In previous webinars, we've explored the importance of self-leadership and the question, who am I? If you didn't manage to see those webinars, you can watch them on the YouTube channel. Just type in Andrew Tallents into the search engine and you should find them. They last about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and this one will be similar. Every day I coach leaders to help them be successful in life. And the goal of my coaching is to really explore many of the issues on this slide with the leader to enable them to start self-coaching over time so that they can sustain their long-term success. So let's explore briefly what self-coaching is. According to the International Coach Federation, coaching is defined as a partnership with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. In modern times, coaching has played a critical role in various sports, such as tennis, cycling, and football, amongst others. But it was Tim Galloway and Sir John Whitmore who took the movement of coaching from the sporting arena into the business world. And this happened in the early 1970s, so it's a fairly recent phenomenon. Tim Galloway, who was coaching tennis students at the time, began to notice in his work that what was going on in the mind of his students was actually hindering their learning. So he started to experiment with ways of helping players learn by developing their own self-awareness of the way they moved around the court and the way they hit the ball, not by specific instruction from him. He gave it the term the inner game and published his initial findings in the Inner Game of Tennis in 1974, and it's worth a read. Later that decade, Sir John Whitmore, who was an ex-racing driver, he'd become interested in various fields of psychology, and he trained alongside Galloway and realized that a lot of the principles that he was discovering could be also applied to business. He continued this research, and in 1992, he published the book on the left here, Coaching for Performance. The principles of his book are still used extensively in businesses today. My day-to-day coaching style is based on Galloway and Whitmore's approach. And it's focused on enabling the leaders I work with to become more self-aware of how they can become more effective in their personal life, their current role, and their career management. During my coaching sessions with my clients, we identify ways that a leader can take their own learning into everyday situations. And specifically, they learn how to coach themselves in key moments in relation to decision-making and relationship building. I'm enabling the leader to self-coach so that over time, they don't need to spend as much time with me. We define self-coaching as the process of leading one's own personal development through self-leadership and the support of others to help maximize their personal and professional potential. And the support of others is really important here. Through self-coaching, once you've decided that you are going to lead yourself, self-leadership, and you have worked out who you are and accepting of who you are, it is important next to really understand why you are here. And that's what we're going to focus on for the rest of this session. I tend to work with leaders at 3 different stages of their career. They are either newly appointed into an exciting leadership role. They are either being successful in their current role and want to move up through the gears to achieve even more success and gain promotion. Or they are lost in their current role and can't work out why they are lost. I'd like to try a quick anonymous poll now. I've not tried this before, so let's just see if it works. So these 2 questions, have you ever felt lost in a role during your career? And do you feel lost now? I'm going to launch this poll and just see the response. Again, it's anonymous, so we don't know who's answering. So thanks for answering there. So yes, 85% have felt lost in your career at some point. And of the people on the webinar today, 46% saying, do you feel lost now? Yes. And it's very common for us to actually feel lost at various times during our careers. Let's explore why leaders lose their way in life. I see this all the time. In our last webinar, I shared with you the importance of understanding our value systems and what 3 key values get us out of bed in the morning. These are the values that motivate us in our leadership role. And if any one of these three values cannot be realized in our current leadership role, then we become demotivated and also disconnected from our organization and also from the other people in our life. Likewise, if the core purpose of the organization we work for is not clear or becomes diluted in some way compared to when we joined the organization, then we can also become disconnected from the role without really understanding why. There's something there, but we're not sure what it is. Many of us have experienced situations where leaders that we know, and maybe even ourselves, have become so successful in our careers, and yet one day they wake up asking the question, was it really worth all the sacrifices that I've made along the way? Many successful leaders struggle in their marriages. They don't have many hobbies outside of work. They don't keep in contact with their old friends and family, and ultimately end up feeling in a lonely place. This is particularly relevant when they become CEOs and they can't speak to anybody. Once leaders achieve success and the financial rewards and expensive lifestyles that can come with that, it can be difficult to risk losing what they already have. And they choose to stay safe and comfortable in their current role when really they are ready for their next challenge. They become bored and feel trapped and lost in their own lives and start to blame others. Finally, some leaders who are very successful in life choose to slow down, create space and time to really think about the reasons they are doing what they're doing, and decide that they don't really know the answer to that question. They don't know why. Their career success has been driven through the expectations of parental figures, of other key stakeholders, and they start to question the value of their personal success. They've lost their sense of purpose in life. So let's briefly explore why having purpose is so important for us as human beings. Firstly, if we understand our purpose, we can focus on our short-term and long-term goals. My own purpose is very clear. It's to help as many influential leaders of today and tomorrow to fulfill their potential as human beings. My short-term goal is to help today's influential leaders learn about themselves and help them fulfill their leadership potential. My long-term goal is to work with young leaders, the ones that are coming through, to help them make a positive impact on the world wherever they choose to work. And whenever anyone ever asks me to spend time with them, I ask myself the question, does the time spent with this person move me closer to either of these short-term or long-term goals? If it does, I spend the time with them. And if it doesn't, I refer them to someone else that can help them. It also enables us to prioritize our day-to-day activities and relationships. If we are clear about our own purpose, it becomes clear about those that we are in service of. In my case, I'm in service of those influential leaders who want to learn more about how to fulfill their own potential. I should not be spending time with any other types of leaders who don't want to learn about how to fulfill their own potential. Scientific research now shows us that understanding our own purpose in life is a key ingredient in our ability to build our long-term resilience, recovering quickly from setbacks, and maintaining our focus on what is important in challenging times, particularly relevant now. During the last 8 weeks of lockdown, I have focused on providing my support to those influential leaders who want to learn more about themselves and how they can fulfill their potential, rather than spending time diverting my energy into pure survival strategies. Finally, when we get up each morning and look at ourselves in the mirror, if we have clear purpose in our lives, then we know that we are making a difference and that we gain a sense of fulfillment and contentment from our actions. Even though I feel tired at the end of a full day of coaching, I know that I have done my best to help influential leaders to make their own difference in their own lives. With this in mind, how do my clients learn to self-coach to discover why they are here? A simple technique my clients use is to make a list of things that energize them and a list of things that drain them. This enables them to work out the reasons why they are not feeling connected to their current role. Some of you may have read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In the book, Covey talks about the importance of understanding your purpose in life and what kind of legacy you would like to leave once you have gone. I use this with clients to enable them to connect with what they really want to achieve in life, but more importantly, assess how far away they are from doing that in the role they are in today, and what do we need to move from there to their future. As human beings, we have a natural affinity for helping others, and a useful technique I use with my clients is to enable them to understand who they are currently serving in their role in life and at work, and also who else they would like to serve in the future, the people they feel that are not serving today. And finally, I work with my clients to help them define their true purpose in life and take the first steps towards living a purposeful life. Let's take a look at each of these techniques in turn, and we're going to try a couple of them out. I often ask my clients to become more self-aware of what energizes them and what drains them. Here are some of my energizers and drains. I would like us all to take a few minutes now just to get a piece of paper I mentioned before and a pen, and just create 2 columns, one headed energizers and the other headed drains. Think about the roles you've had in the last 10 years or so. It doesn't need to be just the current role, the most recent role. And think about the aspects of the roles that energized you and the aspects of the roles that drained you. Please make a list of each on the piece of paper now, and we're going to have a couple of minutes to do this. For those of you that are actually watching a recording of this, then please just press pause now, go away and do the exercise for as long as you need, and then restart the video once you've completed the task. I'll just stop my video for a couple of minutes and come back to you. Now you have the 2 lists. Think about each energizer and drain in turn. If the energizer is or was present in your most recent role, then put a tick next to it. And if it wasn't, put a cross next to it. If the drain was present in the role, then put a cross next to it. And if it wasn't, then put a tick. I'll just give you a minute or so just to go through the list and put ticks and crosses against those energizers and drains. Now count up the number of ticks and crosses in the two columns. If the number of ticks outweighs the crosses, then you may be feeling fairly content with the role you have or you previously had. And if the number of crosses outweighs the ticks, then it's time to start thinking about changing the way you perform your role, or indeed change your role completely. We'll come back to energizers and drains later, but it's a really useful exercise to do with any leader when they're feeling lost. I remember first reading the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People over a decade ago, and Covey's ideas around legacy have stayed with me ever since. In his book, he asked the probing question: if you were to attend your own funeral service as an invisible presence at the end of a long, purposeful and fulfilling life, what would you want the mourners to be saying about you and the legacy you had left behind? What would your family be saying about you? Your friends? Your work colleagues? What would those you had been in service of during your life be saying about you? I would like each of you to think deeply about this question for the next 5 minutes and jot down the words and sentences and thoughts that come to mind for you. I'm going to have a go at this too, and I'll be back to you in 5 minutes' time just to share what we do next. Obviously, you can extend this later at your own leisure, but I hope this exercise gave some of you an insight in terms of the legacy you might want to leave in the future. And this always raises, am I actually in position to be able to work towards that now? The third technique I would like to share with you today is something I do with all of my clients. At the start of every session, I ask the question, who are you in service of? This question reminds a leader that their self-development is not all about them, but about the people around them that they are in service of. This question helps to bring perspective into our sessions when the leader feels lost or confused about their own purpose. Here are some of the people and groups that I am in service of. Again, take a couple of minutes now just to note down who you are in service of today that you are aware of, and then who are the groups, the communities, the people that you maybe want to be in service of in the future. And that might help you again just to define more of your purpose. We'll just spend a couple of minutes noting those down. Now, depending on how creative and open-minded you've been so far today, you will start to understand something about what energizes and drains you, what kind of legacy you might want to leave behind when you're gone, and who you would like to be in service of both now and in the future. This insight is really useful as we move into the final exercise today, which focuses on bringing all of that insight together to give you an idea about your purpose in life. I use this approach with all my clients, and we will need approximately 5 minutes to complete this exercise, but it will be worth it. This is the question that we'll be posing today around purpose. If I had no financial worries and no other limiting factors such as location and family ties, and I could do anything I wanted to do that would maximize all the experience and life skills I had gained to date, what would I do for the rest of my life that would enable me to feel content and fulfilled? Now, this is a very difficult question to answer. And it's important for this exercise that you feel excited about knowing the answer to this question. So if you want to modify this question in some way to make it more relevant to your own personal circumstances and situation, then please write a variation of this question down that you can get excited about and that you want to know the answer to. All I would say is that you need to be thinking without any limitations and with some time period in mind. Here we have for the rest of my life. It could be for the next 5 years, the next 10 years. But I also want you to think that there are no limitations at all in terms of what it is that you would want to do. Once you've written the question down, I would like you to spend 5 minutes drawing the answer to this question on a piece of paper. You won't be showing your drawing to anybody today, you'll be relieved to know. So don't worry if you're not a natural artist, but what is important is that you draw the answer and don't use words. We're drawing on the creative side of your brain today, and this provides a very different perspective to the one that you're normally used to and gives insight that maybe you haven't had for a long time. For most people, this is not an easy exercise, and many of the leaders I work with really struggle to do this. So keep thinking until something comes to mind that you can draw, and then just put the pen to the paper and draw. I'll be doing this exercise. I'll be back with you in 5 minutes to explore what we actually do with this drawing and how it can bring it to life for us in terms of our purpose. Again, if you are watching on a recording, then pause now and come back and resume the video once you've done your drawing. Have fun. Thanks for doing that exercise. This is where I tend to have the most breakthroughs with clients. There's a lot of emotion that's raised when clients draw what they want their future to be like and hopefully what their purpose in life is. And it's not easy to do, and you probably haven't finished the drawings necessarily in the detail you would want. I wish I could see all the drawings out there, and hopefully you've tapped into different thoughts on what you want your life to be like if there were no limits or restrictions in place. Just take a moment now, though, how you would actually articulate that drawing to someone else that doesn't know you. And they may be able to help you achieve this kind of life sometime in the future. As I say, your drawing might not be complete. Take some time after this webinar just to complete it, put more detail into the vision, and we'll talk about how you can use it later. I want to take a quick poll now. So this is the second and final poll. And think about this carefully in terms of what you've just done. How many other people have you shared the vision you've just created on that drawing with before today? So how many people other than you have you shared this vision with before today? Is it nobody, one other person, 2 to 5 people, or more than 5 people? And that's a really interesting result. Of the people in the webinar today, 47% of you have shared it with nobody. So that's very common. 27% is one of you, and only 7% one of you on the call today has shared it with more than 5 people. That's a very, very interesting result and is very common in my experience. In my experience, once leaders have been through this exercise, it really is interesting to know that it's been in there a lot of the time and they haven't shared it with anybody. And that's, again, quite a lonely place to be. There's usually a long period of silence once somebody draws this and tells me they've never shared it with anybody before. So now we've had a go at the exercises, I want to explain to you the steps that you can take to self-coach, to understand why you are here and how you can spend the rest of your life doing what you really want to do, putting this into practice. So once your drawing is complete, articulate your drawing into a compelling vision about your future. Put this into words. What is it you really want to do? You may want to dictate this or write it down or just refer to the drawing as you're doing it. But once you've done it, tell 10 people in your life about your vision and ask for their help in achieving it. Indeed, ask them, what would they do in your shoes now they understand your vision? Using all the insight gained today, design an ideal role description and a charter for yourself. This will have all the energizers, a one-page charter on what you'll say yes and no to in terms of any role that comes to you in the next few months and years. And it enables you to keep your focus when exploring potential opportunities. What is it I really want to spend my life doing? If you're currently in a role, tell your organization, if it's appropriate, what your vision is and ask for help in achieving it. What roles within the organization might be a good fit for you? And what do you need to do to achieve the move into that role? It could be your chief executive now and want to move to non-executive. If the ideal role does not exist, build a succession plan in your company and communicate clearly your plan to exit over time, and then tell the external market your vision. Your ideal life and role exists out there. You just need to go and find it by taking a courageous approach that exudes that conviction and enthusiasm. So a quick summary before we look at a couple of case studies. Firstly, it is normal for leaders to lose their way at certain times of their career, and many of us have done that on this call today. Many of us lose our sense of purpose when we lose our way. We need to take time out, like today, to think deeply about why we are here. We can create our own futures by thinking beyond the limitations we have in our lives and understanding what is truly important to us. It is only us that knows that. It is important to ask for help from our network in achieving the way of life that we deserve. And finally, be clear about what you want and go into the world and find it with confidence and conviction. I have many examples to draw upon that demonstrate that this approach we've talked about today really does work. The first I would like to share with you briefly is about a chief financial officer of an AIM-listed company who came to see me because he was at a crossroads in his career. His business was going through a sale process. He wasn't sure what he was going to do next after that sale process. He stood to make a small sum of money, but not enough to retire on. And his heavy workload and the success that he gained, and drive for that success, had resulted in him losing his sense of purpose. And he felt lost with nobody to talk to and share his frustrations. In one coaching session together, we worked on his purpose, like we've done today, by using creative work around drawing and identifying what energized him. I remember the moment vividly when he drew a picture of a small holding that housed an ice cream farm with him and his young family at the center of a rural community. He lived in London at the time, and yet he wanted to create this ice cream farm in Northumberland. He'd never been to Northumberland, but he knew of it. I asked him after that drawing who else he had shared his vision with, and the answer was nobody else. I felt privileged that he'd shared it with me, but he'd not shared it with anybody else. He was excited about the prospect of working towards his dream, and he committed to tell his wife that night. He emailed me the next day to say his wife was ecstatic about the idea because she'd been thinking about setting up a kids' nightwear fashion business, and that Northumberland was as good a place as any where she could set that up. From that moment on, devising the purpose and sharing it, he set about ensuring that every decision he made took him one step closer to his dream and purpose of promoting sustainable rural living. A second example demonstrates the power of sharing your purpose and vision with the world. I was working with a female CEO of a children's charity. She was making a difference to others every day, working tirelessly, but she did not feel completely fulfilled in life. We did some insights work, including drawing again, and she discovered through her drawing that what she really wanted to do was use her love of theatre to enable children to feel they could speak out and stand up for themselves. Because she shared her vision with me, I was able to connect her with another client of mine who had recently decided to dedicate his life to a similar cause. They are now in contact with each other. If you feel that you might need support in defining your own purpose in life, it's not an easy thing to do. I'd like to make you all an offer today. If you would like to learn more about the techniques that we've been using to discover why you are here and experience in a bit more depth some of the work we've gone through today with my support and my challenge to make you think more deeply, then I'd be happy to offer you a complimentary coaching session with me focused purely on why am I here. I do have a limited number of sessions available in the coming weeks, but if you are interested in this, please drop me a note on LinkedIn or over email to register your interest, and then we can talk about next steps. Those of you that are interested in doing some wider reading around the subject, these are 3 books I would recommend. Find Your Why by Simon Sinek builds on his book Start With Why. It's more of a personal approach. Martha Beck goes into a lot of detail about some of the underlying reasons why you've not maybe found your purpose in life. And The Alchemist, some of you may have read, but it's a really good read in terms of a journey of an individual going on, discovering their purpose in life. So thanks for listening today, and more importantly, putting a lot of hard work in terms of your dream and your purpose. So I'd like to go into the Q&A, if that's okay, and we'll see. We've got about, let's see, probably about 10 minutes left. I wanted to give you more than enough time to work on your purpose. So I'm going to go in now and just see if any questions are coming through. You may want to reflect. So somebody is asking there to share the self-coaching steps. So while we're waiting for the questions to come in, we'll just do that. So these are the self-coaching steps. Sorry, these are the steps here, sorry. So it's all about articulating the drawing, telling people. When you tell people, it means that you are starting to share what it is you're doing, and there's a bit of pressure on yourself to actually gain some momentum in doing that, a bit of pride, but also that people can help you. It's using that insight in terms of building a role description for yourself, the energizers. But more importantly, if you're not happy in your current organization, tell somebody you trust who's influential about what you want to add value to in terms of your current organization. And sometimes, without you knowing, those roles come about, and because you want to do those kind of roles, those kind of opportunities can occur. And if the role doesn't exist, then I think it's time to leave. You know, have that courage to leave, and make sure you build a succession plan professionally, so you're leaving your current organization in a better place, and then go and tell the external market what it is you really want to do. Just see any other questions. How do you find your purpose if you feel lost? Are there any techniques? Well, certainly if we spend time together, we can go through those techniques. A lot of it is really deep thinking and using a different part of your brain that you've not used before. Mindfulness can help as well. But those techniques that we've learned about today certainly can help you find your purpose. But you've got to have real clarity around having no limits and not trying to get too immersed in terms of what your current situation is, because that's what tends to hold us back. So I'll just give 30 more seconds or so for any more questions to come through. For those of you that are interested, the next webinar that we're running is going to be on the 11th of June at 11 a.m. I will post the actual details of that, but it's going to be on essentialism. And what that is doing is actually taking the learning from today and saying, if I really understand what it is I want to do in my life, what are the things that are essential that I need to do, that only I can do, and how am I going to make sure that I spend my time doing them, which isn't easy in roles that you have. So that's quite an interesting build on today. As there are no more questions now, and we're coming up to 5 to 12, I will post these slides on LinkedIn today, so you can have a look through the slides as well. But I really thank you for all attending. I hope that it's helped today, and I hope to see you again in the future. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.